Hello and welcome, Star Wars fans, to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, a show where we debate takes so hot that they'd melt a planet with twin suns. My name's Brody, and I'll be hosting this episode with my co-hosts Amanda and Christian as we attempt to discover what story is truly the best from a galaxy far, far away. On this week's episode, we're going to be discussing ranks and hot takes from Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, aka Star Wars. By the end of this episode, we'll have a definitive answer on where this piece of Star Wars content ranks amongst the rest. Now, with that said, let's get this show started. A New Hope. Wow. The movie that changed sci-fi forever.
Mm-hmm.
And
Cinema. Truly. Should we give people a reminder of what A New Hope is about, maybe if they've never seen it before?
I think that's a good place to start.
All right. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, is the setting for our story. The galaxy is at war. The sinister Darth Vader calls upon his Imperial forces to take Princess Leia, a quick-witted voice for the rebellion against him, hostage. Luke Skywalker, a naive farm boy, and Han Solo, a hotshot pilot of the Millennium Falcon, work together with their Wookiee companion Chewbacca, on my shirt, and droid duo R2-D2 and C-3PO to rescue the princess, help the Rebel Alliance, and restore freedom and justice to the galaxy. What a noble cause.
Noble cause.
What a noble cause.
It's exactly what 1977 needed.
It really is.
Yep.
It's a bit basic.
Yeah.
For what we come to expect now from Star Wars movies. But at the time, there wasn't really anything else like it.
That's true.
Yeah, and think of the wacky world of Star Wars. First coming to this world, you're going to want some kind of a familiar story to tell with it, just to get people on board, you know?
Yeah, it can't be too hard to buy into. So I think you do see that in the story where it's like you do get the normal hero's journey. But even just starting off this film with a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then it just punching you in the face with that music and the crawl, like you are already just like absorbed into this universe. And I also think
Imperial Starfighter too.
And I also think it's interesting that you open up, the first two characters that you see are the droids. So you also know that like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to get here.
Yeah. C-3PO is your ticket to the information that you need to know. Like as the audience, he's feeding you that. And we're on this, you've got menacing Vader.
Don't know why, but he's scary. Like
very scary.
Yeah.
Most iconic of all time. And then we're jumping right into Tatooine in this desolation. And it's slower, but...
overall, though, like A New Hope is one of my least favorite Star Wars films. But I didn't rank it that low because I felt like I had to honor what it did for cinema.
Yeah.
Like it did set the stage, even though like Luke is one of my least favorite characters, and like the technical aspects, yes, at the time they were very advanced and I do love the practical effects, but then the new CGI additions really like take you out of it, and the PowerPoint transitions and stuff are still something.
What do you think about the special edition release and all the edits that came with it?
Well, so I see what was going on. Like, it's understandable why they're there. And looking at them now, in today's day and age, it's like, okay, that's fine. But like, I would get the frustration growing up with them. You're like, oh, gee, Han,
changed them again.
Yeah, it's like Han clearly shot first, or Jabba the Hutt was just a big fat dude. He wasn't this CGI'd slugworm,
Yeah.
Which that was a good edit, for continuity purposes and all that. So there's some good, there's some bad. I like that we get this story with Star Wars. Like we get the original, we get different versions of edits. Like those are a story in and of themselves, because you have to talk about it. You have to tell
it keeps you intrigued throughout the whole thing too.
And it's like, why did we do this? Why'd you do that, George?
There's some that like they're small, they're minor, and it fits like that. And there's others. I don't know what the creature's name is, but it's not even good CGI by today's standards. It's like this giant giraffe dinosaur looking
Oh,
thing
yeah.
that walks into the frame, and all you see is its hips as the stormtroopers approach
Yeah.
Luke's speeder with Obi-Wan. And you're like, what were you hiding? Like, why was
Yeah.
that a good idea to just entirely hide the shot?
Just cinema.
Yeah, just cinema.
I also feel like the movie tends to drag on. Like, I think it's a bold choice to start, like, the first 15 minutes of a film opens up with a prolonged desert scene, like with just two droids lost. And that's for a while. And if you think this is like a kid's movie or maybe, for younger audiences, that would take all the energy out of the big bombastic music that you first got into.
Yeah. It is slower. It's not like a personal go-to of
Yeah.
mine to rewatch as much. I've certainly watched it a bunch and I
Yeah.
love it. But yeah, it's like I have to critique it with the respect that it deserves because it pushed so much.
Mhm.
It changed cinema forever. It's pop culture. It's not even like back then. It's critically acclaimed, and we've talked about this before, and we will get to it later on. Star Wars is this pop culture thing, where it might not be as critically acclaimed, but like A New Hope, the original trilogy, are critically acclaimed. But watching this movie, it is cool to think about it as its own movie. Like picture watching it, and you don't need the other two or whatnot. Like when it was first coming out, like that wasn't the expectation to get this trilogy. It was this holistic, individual, good movie.
Yeah, that's cool. Within the scope of this good movie, what's the one singular favorite moment you have? And the reason I want to ask that is because for myself, when you were mentioning all that, Christian, my favorite movie, knowing what we know now about Star Wars, is Obi-Wan talking to Luke and kind of discussing, what his father was like, talking about the Clone Wars, explaining what a lightsaber is, what the Force is, seeing Luke immediately hear about how dangerous of a weapon it is, and he points it right at his own face. Yeah, but I love that. He's summarizing all that so well, all of this painful history and everything in this really short story. And it's cool. It's cool to see, like, wow, George Lucas had so much lore in his head before creating any of that. He just made this one movie to see if it would take off and then expanded upon all of those things. Whether you love the prequels or hate the prequels or the Clone Wars or anything else, the man had a vision. And in that scene, it's really showcased.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. What about you guys? Any other favorite moments from you from
I think one of my favorite moments is when Chewie and Han are in the control room and they're trying to be like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
How are you?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah,
He was
that's
like, everything's fine. How are you?
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah. So that's a good moment. Another favorite moment of mine is when Han comes back for the fight, like the assault on the Death Star, and he's like, yeah, and he's like holding his headset, and like they did it, and that was just really cool.
So, what about some worst moments from this movie? Something that's painful to think about. Maybe it's cringy. What's something you don't enjoy about A New Hope?
I really just don't like Luke, and I think in most cases the main character is usually the most unlikable throughout media. It's kind of a trend. He's necessary in the story because as the audience we're supposed to be kind of in his POV where we're like, we don't know what the Force is, like we're all learning about it together, but he's just bratty and annoying. And I know that I'm taking this out of context to just A New Hope by itself, but I always think of in Rebels, there is a clip where you see Luke as a child and he's like a toddler, like playing with blocks or something. And then you also see Leia later on in one of those seasons, and she's like a whole ass like running like a trade deal and something like that. And
Yeah.
I'm like, it just shows how like immature and quite frankly, he's a Mary Sue. So, you know, I don't want to hear it about anyone else because Luke was the OG.
I think of, but I want to go to Tashi's station, pick up the power converters.
Yeah.
I know. I think for me, it's how quickly he gets over Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's death. But man, when Obi-Wan dies, he just can't go on. And I love that Leia's the one to comfort him, who she just lost her home planet.
Yeah, her whole planet.
Yeah.
She's like, it's okay,
that
buddy.
old guy that you
It's
just
all right."
met like a couple days ago.
He lived a good life.
Yeah.
He chose to die.
Yeah,
for
he
you.
disappeared. You didn't even have to watch him get like sliced in half.
Yeah.
You had a pretty good follow-up, like you saw it coming.
Yeah.
No, that is rough. I think for me, it's a lot of the dialogue between Luke, Han, and Leia. And in this movie, again, it was meant to kind of be its own thing, but it's also the 70s. But people are they fit very much in that little cliche of what they're supposed to be. You do have the whiny main character who musters up everything, summons his maturity, and helps save the day in the end. And you do have the guide, the wizard, who's helping point him in the right direction. The Gandalf of this series, if you will. You do have that rebel smuggler he's going to shoot first. He's not going to ask questions, but hey, he's a good guy at heart. He's the anti-hero. But don't ask him for anything. Maybe he'll do it. Maybe he won't. And then you have Princess Leia, the sassy princess who's going to get what she wants at the end of the day, won't take no for an answer, and in that way, it feels very tropey.
So it's interesting that you said the dialogue because I do think the dialogue stands out, whether for better or for worse, because the language, like we were talking about Tashi Station, and the cadence in which all of the characters deliver their lines. Like I remember Leia has like this Spitfire like little line that she gives, and it sounds like a tongue twister, but she says it so passionately, and it really helps you feel encased in that environment that like this is just part of their language that they're used to using all the time.
Yeah, there's like a certain analog feel to this sci-fi thing, but yeah, she'll be like, would somebody please get this walking carpet out of my way? Or like, I kind of agree with you, Amanda. The dialogue worked for me, and I think A New Hope executes comedy the best of Star Wars. I would put it at probably the best, most comedic in executing it well, because some Star Wars is kind of awkward comedy. But this one was good, and I liked the vibe.
It's much more lighthearted than later episodes.
Very lighthearted, dynamic, especially with Han's lines and whatnot. And just like, tell Jabba I've got the money. You know, So I think it does work out with the dialogue, but it's I don't know, if I had to like pick something. It's hard to pick something that I really don't like about it, other than just the slow pace of this one. Like, I enjoy a good slow movie if it's good. But this one, it's kind of like,
it's easy to tune out of a little bit.
This is a shorter film, and it's got some slow parts in it. Let's move along those desert scenes.
Yeah.
Move along.
Yeah. I also didn't rank the technical aspects very high. I mean, again, even for you see the difference between Empire Strikes Back and this one, that there's a budget. That said, the miniatures they had and they filmed were absolutely impressive, especially for the low budget they had, which was really interesting. I recently learned that Luke Skywalker's pants were actually jeans that were bleached.
Oh.
And so there were a lot of little practical things they were doing. Then makes you really think about a lot of cosplayers. Like, well, it could have been a lot easier instead of getting those.
I learned
expensive
that
pants
the
on
handle of a lightsaber was from, those like old flash cameras that would have like a stick and like a bulb.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like I watched someone deconstruct one of those, like take the bulb and take the like little round thing off of it, and it looks like a lightsaber. So they were really creative, and also like the sound team and like figuring out how all of those sounds came together.
The sound team.
Like the creativity behind all of the minds that made this universe happen are like we are forever in there.
Yeah, I had to give the technical aspects like the perfect score, just with what they were doing at the time it came out. And I can't remember what exactly they either fogged up the camera screen or the greased up the bottom to make it look like Luke's speeder had like a hovering exhaust underneath it, but it wasn't. They just fogged up or greased up that part of the camera lens.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
You know, one observation I had on this rewatch that I wanted to bring up was in the very first hallway scene with Vader, like right after Leia gives R2 the plans, you see Vader physically choke one of the guards that lets them go. And then later on, after Obi-Wan has introduced the concept of the Force to Luke and to the audience, we see Vader use the Force choke. So it was kind of a cool reveal that, okay, you get introduced to Darth Vader. He's evil. You know that because he's choking someone right now. but later, as we start to learn about the Force, like what can the Force do?
Oh, yeah.
Now we see, the Force can be used for evil in a bad way. And I thought that was a cool way to reveal that information as the story went on.
Yeah, I love that you bring that up. That's a cool... First, it's physical form, then next with the Force, and like
it was smart.
Very smart.
Yeah, and I mean, I can't hate too much on the technical aspects when they just nailed the design for Darth Vader.
Yeah,
I mean, out the gate. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, casting David Prowse, who very subtle mannerisms, but just helped Darth Vader give that menacing vibe, and James Earl Jones' voice just lending to that character with just a commanding presence. I remember even I did the Star Wars Dark Side half marathon at one point. I remember finishing the race and they had this meet and greet with Darth Vader. And I don't know if the guy was doing impressions or what, but it was still pretty like spot on. And it was even like, you know, as a not super tall person myself, you see this like 6'4", 6'5", towering presence. You're like, whoa, like that alone is like slightly daunting. Imagine if it were real.
Yeah.
Especially if you're
with a bunch of armor and a cape and a helmet and like all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very, very gothic. But, well, going into the music, I don't see how this doesn't get a perfect score.
Yeah.
Yes, legendary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the main theme, the binary sunset, the Force theme, it's just...
The whole thing. It's just so perfect.
Yeah, if that doesn't get you in the movie.
Yeah.
There would be no Star Wars without John Williams.
Nope.
Oh, my goodness.
Everyone knows it. That's not a hot take.
I learned recently that for the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, actually, you're the one that said this, that he's making a new theme for Obi-Wan.
Yeah, he requested to make a proper Obi-Wan theme because I think he initially planned for the Force theme to be part of like Obi-Wan's theme, but it became its own thing.
Okay.
And since there was never a proper Obi-Wan Kenobi theme, he asked if he could make it, but otherwise the rest of the score is done by a woman for the first time.
All right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I didn't know this, but I would be really interested to see like Obi-Wan or like hear Obi-Wan's theme.
I know.
Like, what's that gonna be like?
Yeah. Just a loop of him saying hello there.
It's gonna be Daft Punk.
No. Yeah, that's what it'll be. I buy into it. Well, our last category here, the Immersive Universe.
I gave this a 5 too.
5 out of
because
5.
like
the first of its kind, like
everything is new. You're building a whole new lore. You're seeing all of these different planets.
Yeah.
And it's not like
Species.
overwhelming where it's like you're watching it and you're like turned off or like you're lost in the language. You're like, oh, some people can get into that weird nerdy stuff. But like this one, no, it's like it's easy to get into. But like you were saying earlier, Brody, like Obi-Wan teases a lot of history and lore already when he's teaching Luke or telling him about things. And you're kind of like, what is all that he's talking about? And then they just kind of move on, and you're distracted by everything else that's pretty cool in this universe.
Yeah. I did not give it a perfect score. I didn't give it a bad score. It's still fared pretty well at a 3.6 for me. But no, I again, there's still a lot left to be desired. It doesn't make it a bad movie where you have things like what is it, the Rise of Skywalker, where all that movie is lore, no story, no character. All they did was just throw. It was
throw it all in there.
The most Star Wars movie.
Cook it
yet.
up.
Yeah, that's all it was.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, it does kick off. I mean, basically, in one aspect, all it is, you could think of it in two trains of thought. All it is lore at the same time, because again, it's introducing a Death Star. It's introducing this Star Wars vernacular. All of these things. But again, I didn't give it a 5 out of 5 because I don't think that's what necessarily makes the movie either. It is interesting, and it starts out that way, but you very quickly buy into this other universe, and it becomes just a good versus evil battle.
Mm-hmm.
And represented just like that. Luke is polished, white outfit, going against the guy dressed in all black, and again, very kind of tropey in that way. The very clear bad guys. So, I also want to add, we didn't talk about the actors so much, but some of them, as I said, were really fantastic. Like I was talking about David Prowse, but another one I want to give a shout out to. I don't know his name off the top of my head, but who was it that played Grand Moff Tarkin?
Oh,
I know it's
I'm blanking now too.
Peter Cushing?
Yes. Yep.
Man.
Yeah. Menace. Evil incarnate. Tarkin is awesome. It was just one of those. Yeah, we do get great like characters, and he's like this. It's interesting to see him in his relationship to Vader, because you're like, oh, Vader's the big baddie, and then you're like, oh, Tarkin,
but he doesn't have any powers.
No, but he blew up Alderaan.
Yeah,
and he seems like, the more maybe this is just coming from it, knowing what we know now, but it seems like Vader is even kind of more of like a lackey, just in general, where the Emperor sends him places. He listens to Grand Moff Tarkin. Tarkin orders Vader.
Almost like a parallel to Ben Solo.
Oh man,
we don't know about the Emperor though at this point.
That's true.
It's true. But I'm just saying, like, Grand Moff Tarkin tells Vader what to do. He's like, Vader's choking someone. He's like, that's enough. Kind of like, you've had your fun, and almost talking to him like a child in a way, which is really, really interesting. So he's pretty bad, pretty darn bad. And just his stoic, menacing nature. Really good casting. I love that they have Sir Alec Guinness for Obi-Wan. I also thought it was really funny that he wasn't expecting this to be very big, that he thought the movie was pretty silly. Whereas you have Ewan McGregor, the new Obi-Wan, who loves it and thinks it's amazing. And so it's I don't know, it was so well cast.
Yeah.
All around. So yeah, it's a pretty great story. Well, do we have anything else we want to talk about for the ranking of this before we move into our next segment?
What's the official number that this puts the movie at?
Oh, well, that's a pretty important thing to talk about. So, looking at everything, it puts this movie at an 80.93% overall.
That's pretty high.
All right, that's a good score.
That's higher than I think I would have. If I was making a list of my favorite Star Wars movies, A New Hope would be at the bottom third of it.
Yeah.
But even I didn't score it necessarily at that same way.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the fun thing about this podcast, is we get to put our personal feelings aside a little bit and try to look at it critically.
Well, even IMDb only put it at an 8.6.
Okay, so
we're not
that's
too far off on that.
Yeah.
No, not crazy far.
They're not too far off from us.
Yeah.
This is our first official episode, and already commanding the brand.
We're the IMDb for Star Wars.
Just for Star Wars.
The Star Wars ranking team.
We're talking about. All right. Well, with that said, Lord Vader, take us into our next segment.
Don't be too proud of this podcast you've constructed. The ability to rank content is insignificant next to the power of an exceptional heart. take.
It's hot takes time. And I've got a hot take.
Okay.
As good as this movie is, it is absolutely overrated. The amount of people that tell me this is a top 3 Star Wars movie. In fact, the amount of people that tell me it is the best Star Wars movie. I'm sorry, but I do not believe that is correct at all. In fact, I think this is a very middle of the road Star Wars movie.
Well, you already know I already said that it's the bottom third, if not one of the bottom 3.
Whoa, I don't know if I got that. I think your take's hotter than mine. It's lower than I have it, actually. Okay.
I really say, my friend.
What about you, Christian? What do you think?
I mean,
It's
it
overrated.
It ruffles my feathers when you say it's overrated. But I get what you're saying. I would disagree mainly because it's really important, and we'll find this out as we go with the show. It's really important to evaluate things based in context, like things coming out when they come out, at the time they come out. And it's just one of those where I uphold it so much to like this classic platinum.
Yeah.
I can't take away from that, as however big my opinion may be of it. I kind of just hearken it as that. So I totally get what you're saying, but I disagree.
Well, and for all of our listeners that don't know how we actually determine who wins or loses the hot takes, we've got 3 sound bites. If one of the hosts agree with me, then or with anybody who has a hot take, you get a Roger, Roger. If you get both of them to disagree,
I find your lack of good takes disturbing.
and then finally, if people decide your take wasn't even hot at all,
You fool! Your take is milk toast.
There's another soundbite for that.
there's another sound bite for that.
Guess we'll just
So
have to wait and hear it.
we need one when like everyone unanimously agrees. We don't have one for that yet. Maybe one day. But anyway, well, anybody else have any other hot takes for A New Hope before we move into the last segment of the show?
Nope.
All right. Well, it's time for everyone to meet our good friend, Force Ghost Charlie. There's a story there, and we're going to share it, but not today. You guys are actually going to be able to meet Charlie on the Book of Boba Fett. Great Force Ghost. But for us, today, he's going to lead us into trivia time. Force Ghost Charlie, hit it.
This is the way to trivia time!
It's trivia time, and I believe I have the question of the day. So for A New Hope, what is Luke's call sign in the Battle of Yavin? Is it Red 1, Red 3, Red 5, or Red 4?
Red 5.
Red 5.
You are both right. It's Red 5.
Nice.
Clearly you watched the movie.
We did. Thank
Once or twice.
goodness.
Once or twice.
Thank goodness.
Thank
That was a
goodness.
nice. Thanks for the softball
Yeah.
question, man.
We got to start the
Our
show,
listeners
right?
are like, "What the heck kind
They're
of
like,
question
yeah.
is that?"
Yeah.
Sheesh.
Well, fine.
It's the first one, folks. All right.
Next
Give us a
week
break.
it'll be harder. Next week it'll be harder.
Yeah.
I promise. Well, that's really it. We've ranked a piece of Star Wars content, and right now it is the best piece of Star Wars content and the worst because it sits by itself.
It's got a number,
It has
and
a
you
number.
can look it up.
You can look it up on where can they find it, Christian?
DuelTheRanks.com.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've been paying attention to Twitter, you probably would have seen it around there too.
There you go. Amanda, what else can people find on this oh so elusive dueloftheranks.com?
You can find all of our rankings. You can check out our blog with great write-ups for each episode. And we also have a shop with a bunch of cool swag. You can get your own DOTR shirts and hats.
Very cool.
Yep.
And
Amanda
a
designed
fanny
them.
pack.
I did.
We've got a fanny pack, people.
No one's bought the fanny pack yet.
Someone's got to buy the fanny pack.
Someone's got to buy the fanny pack, and it can't be me.
Oh, and on the website, you can submit your own hot takes or reply to our hot takes and let us hear it, because we know you have a Star Wars opinion. Everyone does. So we welcome all Star Wars opinions here.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for listening to this week's episode of Duel of the Ranks, and we're excited to have you back here next week as we review The Empire Strikes Back. See you then.